You're listening to WCWM 90.9 of the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. My name is Lena, and this is Safety Razor, the radio show that's a little bit edgy. I have the great privilege of having Jessica Anderson on the air today. She's running for Virginia's 71st District to be the delegate, which includes the city of Williamsburg, and therefore all of us students at William and Mary. Thank you, Jessica, for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, it's super great. The election is coming up. Voting starts very soon. And Jessica is a longtime resident of the area. Do you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Yeah, so born and raised Virginian, grew up in Newport News, graduated in Woodside High School in 99, and then have lived in this district, which includes New Kent, James City, and the city of Williamsburg for over 21 years now. Lived here, raised my family here, have 3 daughters, one of which is now at VCU, and still have 2 children in the public school system. Enjoying my second marriage and avid runner and working at the front office of the local public school here, Matthew Bailey, which a lot of William Mary students come in and do their time there to become teachers themselves. So really love the campus here, have a great relationship with it, have lived in the city right next door. And as I said, I'm a runner, so I run through the district in this area all the time.
Great. Thank you so much again for coming on. We're going to jump right into some music here because that's the theme. We're doing music, but also obviously talking policy and voting. So the first one is one of Jessica's picks. Do you want to say anything about Kate Bush?
I mean, what is there not to say about Kate Bush? She is a goddess and an icon, and I'm an 80s baby, so all things 80s make me happy.
All right, there we go. All right, don't touch that dial unless you're cranking it up. This is Running Up That Hill.
It doesn't hurt me, yeah, yeah.
You're still listening to Safety Razor, WCWM 90.9. My name is Lena, and we have Jessica Anderson on. She's running for Virginia delegate of the 71st District. Jessica, thank you again for coming on.
Yes.
All right, so first I just want to dive in more into your background. So, as you mentioned, you were born and raised in Newport News, and you've been living in the Williamsburg, James City County area for a long time. So why are you running for Virginia delegate?
So a domino effect kind of landed me here. Back in 2014 into 2015, I went through a pretty difficult divorce and found myself single with 3 children, navigating social safety nets, returned to the workforce. And basically that was a very humbling, situation for me, but it was also very eye-opening. About a year after I went back to work, working for a local dental practice that I'd been at previously during my previous marriage, I got a pay raise. I was like, awesome, $5,000 a year, super. And then in exchange, I lost the $7,000 a year I was getting for EBT, so food security. So basically overnight, I found myself at a deficit. And it just really set a tone to tell me there's a lot of people that are probably not bettering their situation because in reality, they're not going to. The idea that, getting a better job or maybe seeking education to, do something better or better income means losing your house or losing your health care or losing food is a pretty scary reality. I was very fortunate. I had local family to kind of help me get through the tougher times. And then about 2 years later, I married my now husband in the running community. So thankfully, my financial situation changed. I had a 2-income family, again, a 2-income household. But again, it was just kind of a reminder of like, I know where I've been and I know how I got here, and a lot of people don't have the same opportunities. So ended up taking a pretty significant pay cut shortly after we got married and started working at Matthew Whaley in the front office part-time. But another opportunity to kind of experience the community firsthand, seeing other families that are really struggling financially, a lot of children that are not having their needs met when it comes to education, our teachers just not having the resources they need, being completely underfunded. And then as time moved forward into COVID, we saw this kind of foundational crack just erupt, and people did not have the infrastructure in place. We had children that weren't getting meals because they weren't coming to school anymore. So all of those things were came together, and I found myself on the internet after January 6th, specifically TikTok, and got incredibly political and just tried to help other people understand what was going on, help them get more involved at the local, state, and national politic level, inspiring people to go vote, inspiring people to really know the people that they're putting in the office, and, advocating for their own rights and the things that were changing. And this past September, I was like, I could be doing more. So I ended up throwing my hat in the ring, and I decided to run as the next delegate. I knew the new redistricting was, occurring, and it was really drawn to be competitive. And I knew I was loud and a bit of a outspoken advocate that I could probably be the one to make the flip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's a great story, and I'm definitely interested more in how your position as a faculty member at a public school affects your campaign, being that public education is one of the issues that you definitely focus on.
Yeah. I think it's like a hot button, issue right now. We have a lot of conversations in the state level about this Parents Matter movement. And then we also see in the national level, the language of school choice, which is really just a guise for funneling public school money and community tax dollars into private sector and religious schools. So I think that's something that's hitting a little close to home, and it's making me really nervous. I have 2 children in the public school. We already acknowledge there's a massive defunding of our school system, and that's proven in a JLARC report that just came out. It said we're not doing enough financially for our children. And I think that the fact that I'm running against someone who just introduced this past legislation, a voucher program that would have defunded our school by $5,000 per student per year, that's terrifying. She's also tried to, another issue is food insecurities during COVID. One thing people don't realize is every school student in the entire Commonwealth got to eat for free. we had, they put that in the legislation because they knew people were struggling. They knew we were trying to get people back in the classrooms. And we saw a 30% uptick right here in WJCC of children taking food because it was available. So that tells me that these children are choosing not to eat because of financial burdens and obstacles. And so why are we not eliminating those obstacles and making sure every child has the opportunity to eat? And that should be top priority of our legislation. And instead, my opponent actually voted to punish children, stripping them of extracurricular sports and club activities in their schools if they had meal debt that their parents didn't pay. So it's just, I think there's a lot of conversations, and I think sometimes people and voters particularly don't know how nuanced the issues really are, and that these words like school choice, and they sound really great, actually have the most negative impacts on a majority of our children. And we have to speak to that issue and speak to the data and make sure they know this is not a benefit. The benefit would be smaller class sizes. The benefit would be more educator staffs and resources and support staff in the building, better quality of pay to incentivize retaining teachers. There's real solutions that we could be introducing instead of redirecting funds and just making the system far worse than it already is.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we are definitely going to dive more into policy in a minute here, but I did just want to jump back to redistricting really quick. And I just wanted to pick your brain and see what you thought. Well, you mentioned that the districts have been redrawn to be more competitive. The 71st district, or at least what district was here before, definitely is one of them. And do you have any thoughts on how that is going to affect the Commonwealth as a whole? Just because redistricting affects most places, right?
Yeah. So we hold the Senate majority by the most narrow of margins. And I think one of the seats, which also is part of this district, is Monty Mason in District 24. He is in an incredibly contentious race, and the way it was redrawn, it's pretty much a 50-50 split. On the House side, there's probably anywhere from 10 to 12 seats that have very similar margins to include this one. I really like the fact that a lot of these seats are competitive, because I think it forces both candidates to work. And it forces them to really come to the table and show what they stand for, show what their policy is going to be. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing throughout Virginia is a lot of smear campaigns and target attacks coming from the right, really not talking about the policy they're going to introduce, more pivoting to claims of what their, opponents are going to do. Versus the Democrats are saying these things are on the line and giving really clear, direction, like reproductive freedom, public education, gun safety, quality of life, et cetera. So I think this redistricting is creating a healthy environment for politics, but it's also creating an environment where we're really seeing our politicians showing their true colors on, where they stand or whether or not they have a stance to stand on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and redistricting is kind of a hot button issue across the country, I think. So it's going to be cool to see what happens in Virginia. It's going to be interesting no matter what. All right, so jumping back to policy really quickly, you did mention a couple of your key topics that you wanted to focus on. But reproductive rights in particular is something that I'm interested, given the fact that Virginia is now the only southern state that's not passed restrictions on abortion access post Roe v. Wade. So how does that factor into the fight for reproductive rights in the Commonwealth for you?
I think it's huge. We have a governor that is clearly ready and willing to sign any abortion ban that comes across the table. He is trying to use this very moderate consensus language about this 15-week ban. And I find it interesting that he's doing that when the reality is we do not have an issue with elective abortions after 15 weeks. So if that's the solution he's trying to solve, why is 15 weeks the conversation he's starting at? And I think it's because he's trying to garner votes under this very moderate, guise. Oh, yeah, this is all we want. And then once he gets the General Assembly that he's hoping for, he will absolutely go for the throat and get a 6-week, if not full abortion ban on the books. I have zero doubt in my mind. We have multiple legislators that have already introduced bills like that, not to mention, legislators that are on the ballot that have stated, I will absolutely fight for a full ban. My opponent literally still has a picture of her at a Right to Life rally back in 2019 with a sign that says, stop abortion now. That doesn't sound like like somebody who's looking for a 15-week ban or a moderate consensus kind of policy. We have sound policy or laws on the books. We basically have the rule of Roe. It's the law that was put in place when Roe was originally decided, stating that abortions cannot occur beyond the second trimester unless they are medically necessary and deemed so by 3 consulting physicians. I stand by that. I don't see a reason that we need any bans on the books. We tie the hands of healthcare professionals. We put them in a situation where they have to question their decisions and possibly consult with legal, and that can put patients' lives on the lines. And I also think it's a slippery slope in healthcare in general. I mean, legislators do not have any business in our healthcare decisions because we're talking about issues with trans community. We're talking about issues, with access to medications. So this doesn't just end with reproductive rights. This opens the door for so many more nefarious types bills that are going to be put on the table.
Absolutely. Yeah, and especially on the topic of trans healthcare, that I believe that definitely has an intersection with the public education issue as well. Mm-hmm. And for those at home that maybe aren't aware, I also just wanted to point out that one reason why reproductive rights are so important in Virginia is because since Roe v. Wade was overturned and these bans across the South started, being passed, there has been an uptick in abortion services in Virginia, and that is likely because people are needing to come to the Commonwealth in order to get procedures that they need. So I just wanted to point that out. It's definitely an issue that reaches beyond just Virginia. But on that note, I think we're going to go straight into another song. So next up we have Tori Amos. Do you want to say anything about her?
I just grew up on her. She's like angry girl, and I think it's every like teenage girl. But she was just someone that I just really loved. And any girl that's going through like breakups and just life in general, Tori Amos was kind of who you listened to in the 90s.
Yes, we are about to get right into that. And also, I would just like to, just a note for the Williamsburg community, the Campus Food Exchange is now open in the Sadler Center, which is where we're broadcasting from, actually. That's crazy. This service provides free food to all members of the William and Mary community and is located in Sadler 157 near the Haven. The Campus Food Exchange is open all day, every day, so definitely go take advantage of that service. And now we're going to get straight into Tori Amos, so don't touch that dial unless you're cranking it up. You're listening to WCWM 90.9 of the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. My name is Lena, and this is Safety Razor. Once again, we have Jessica Anderson on to talk policy, voting, democracy, and music, of course. She's running for the 71st District for Virginia Delegate, and we are in the middle of talking about some of the most important issues in the campaign right now. So the next thing, you did touch on this a bit before, but I just want to circle back to public education and parental rights, which are definitely hot-button issues right now. Is there anything else on that issue that you would like to expand on, or do you feel like you covered that?
I feel like parental rights exist. Like I have complete access to my children's curriculums. I have access to my children's teachers. I am able to participate in, the community of like volunteering or PTA or, going on field trips, et cetera. Like we have so much access to our students. I don't understand kind of the talking point that's coming from the top right now, especially in Virginia, about this idea that we don't have our rights as parents in school systems. I've never seen that questioned. I've never seen a concern around that. And it really makes me concerned because something like Youngkin's 2023 model policy is incredibly dangerous, and it actually contradicts the whole parental rights concept. I actually spoke about this at our local school board meeting just last night. It's basically to target our trans children, our trans youth. And what bothers me is if a parent is completely supportive of their child, they go in, they do all the, needed documentation to change their name or change their pronoun, regardless of the fact that they're doing everything that they're expected and they're on board. This policy gives staff members and educators, et cetera, the ability to discriminate against them and blatantly refuse their request and not accommodate them because it goes against what they feel is true. So in essence, it's saying we don't care or respect the student and we do not respect that parent's parental rights. It goes a step further and demands that if you do have a trans student in the school, if it's elementary school, the teacher for a classroom has to alert all of the fellow parents of that classroom that there is a trans student in that classroom, putting that child at risk of targeting, bullying, harassment, or far worse. It's also a violation of that family's privacy. Now, while they won't give it a direct name, just the concept that now they've been alerted, and all for the purpose of choosing to use a different bathroom. And then on the flip side, in the high school, because they're moving between different classrooms and middle school as well, they would have to alert the entire school population based on this model policy. So it's really just putting, in essence, things like HIPAA on the line and creating an environment that could be incredibly dangerous for this child who is just trying to exist. So I think that there's a lot of talk from our governor and from the Virginia GOP about wanting to support parental rights, but then they're putting policy in place. And, basically the legislation isn't matching the language. And I think parental rights is important. I just think that it needs to be represented honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I know another one of the important issues for you is talking about quality of life for people in the 71st District. And I know that issue is important to us at William and Mary. A lot of students were involved in the effort to help our dining workers unionize. So I was wondering if you could speak more about what you're focusing on in terms of quality of life for.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I'm a huge supporter of things like collective bargaining. In fact, our educators right now in the WJCC district are trying to get the numbers so that they can collective bargain, and it's looking really good. So I'm excited about that. But I absolutely think that we should, employees need to have a seat at the table when it comes to discussing their wages, their comprehensive benefits, their, working environment, everything that comes into play, and that unions obviously help mitigate. We right now, when we look at the service industry, whether it's be with our local schools, with our local hospitals, with places like Eastern State, which is a state-funded facility, these service workers who are working in the food industry, who are doing grounds, who are, doing custodial work, et cetera, transportation for our schools, they are making the saddest of wages, to the point that they have to depend on state resources. So they're having to dig into social safety nets to literally survive and, make ends meet. And so the idea that these people are working full-time hours and still cannot successfully live, work, and raise their families here in the Commonwealth or here in the 71st District, that's disappointing. And I feel like there is a huge swath of people that are existing in that world right now. And we also have a lot of people that are living in dual households or homelessness or in motels that we don't really hear conversations about, and these are very real realities of Williamsburg. So I want to make sure that we shine a light on that reality and that we make some really powerful legislation moves to ensure that those people are being taken care of and they have more opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, so now I wanted to shift gears a bit, talking more just directly to the William and Mary students right now. The election is coming up, so I was wondering if you could tell us about the process of voter registration, when that has to be in by, and when people can start voting.
Yeah. So what's really great about Virginia is during the 2020 and 2021 General Assembly, they expanded our voting to the point that we have 45 days of early voting, which is fantastic. Early voting starts Friday, so September 22nd. If you are here in Williamsburg, that location is, I will have that for you in 1 second, but it's 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. We have 2 Saturday dates as well, which is really great. And then on top of that, you are able to register all the way up to voting day. If you want to vote without a provisional ballot, though, October 16th is the last day to register to vote. Super simple. I think you do have to provide one form of documentation. They did recently change it a little bit, but I know my daughter was able to register just online. Super simple. They mailed us the voting card to the house. It was no questions asked. So your location for the city of Williamsburg is the municipal building, which is 401 Lafayette Street. And again, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, starting September 22nd. There are 2 Saturdays, October 28th and November 4th. Those days are also 8 to 4:30 p.m. And then, of course, Election Day itself is November 7th, and that's from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But yeah, I think the William and Mary community, all of our college students are critical for our Virginia elections. We have seen around the nation Gen Z stepping up and really making their voices heard and protecting rights in a lot of states in the South that were losing different things. When we look at Kansas, we look at what happened in Ohio recently. All of these things are just a reminder that when we show up and we show up in numbers, we can make change. And I like to point to the fact that the last 10 years especially, because we've been more connected with social media and the ability to just access communities that we never had access to, we're learning a lot more about how important elections are. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, for many years, kind of slept at the wheel. We didn't really know how impactful our votes were to everyday people for everyday life situations, and now we do. And I'd like to remind people of that because I know there's a lot of people, and including Gen Z, and including people in my age demographic in the 30s and 40s, are like, voting doesn't work. And I'm like, well, you're looking at a generational timeline of where we didn't realize how important voting was. And now we do. And I think that shift is meaning we need to show up, and we need to show up in big numbers. And I know William and Mary campus could definitely make or break races like myself's and Monty's.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we were chatting about just before we jumped on air was you were talking about how Virginia is like the bellwether state, since all of our elections are, not the same time that federal elections are. So, yeah, we gotta set the tone for all the young people across the country, guys. And then also speaking to political activism, staying active in your community. For people that want to learn more about your campaign or possibly even maybe get involved with it, how do they go about doing that?
So we are always looking for volunteers and interns, especially those that are on the William and Mary campus that are very politically engaged or want to become politically engaged. So super simple website, JESS, the number 4 VA.com. You can find out everything about me. And then if you do a /WM, you as a William and Mary student could definitely set up and join our team in one one way or another. But we do canvas launches every weekend. We, are doing massive postcards. We have phone bank set up going on with Historic Triangle Dems, which is our we're the second largest political organized group in the state next to Nova. So they have some great events as well to kind of motivate people, get them out, and help get voters to the polls. And I think that's going to be critical. Voter turnout is abysmal because we are the bellwether state and because people are just politically weary, like elections every year. Why? So getting people to show up is going to be what makes or break, I think, this election for 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'm going to jump in really quick with one more little message for the community. Speaking of being involved in your community, the Williamsburg Farmers Market in Merchant Square is open on Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The market is located at the Francis Street parking lot at 410 Francis Street. Information is at williamsburgfarmersmarket.com. Once again, that's williamsburgfarmersmarket.com. And you can actually volunteer for them, too, if you're looking for other ways to get involved. All right, so I feel like we're ready to wrap up with a very pretty classic song, I would say. Anything that you want to say about Journey right now?
I mean, Journey's amazing. Again, I'm 80s born, and that's where I will live and die when it comes to music and movies. It's my world.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the show, Jessica. It was so great to meet you and learn more about your policy priorities. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. Thank you.
Yes, this was great. All right. This is Don't Stop Believin' by Journey, so don't touch that dial unless you're cranking it up.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. She took the midnight train going anywhere. Just a city boy, born and raised in South Detroit. He took the midnight train going anywhere. A singer in a smoky